Good evening. I trust you had a blessed day today. Goeienaand. Hoe gaan dit met die mooi mense? Dumelang bagaetsho. Leperile. Hey, so good to have you again tonight. You know, every Tuesday evening, we have an interesting time together where we discuss a few things that affect us, some directly, some indirectly. We look for solutions. Remember that the ACDP is pushing and working hard for a godly government. So godly governance is our aim and our goal. But before we get into the important issues we're going to talk about tonight, we want to say hello and to welcome everybody who has joined us tonight. Who is the first one to say, here am I, Mario Brink. Evening, my leader in Christ. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now we have Kingston Holland Ramsey. Good evening, Reverend Mishwe. Palesa Yates. Uri Dumela Muruti Mishwe. And then we have fellow Christians. Good evening, President. Good evening, Mr. Christians. Marianne Lotta. Good evening, President. Oh, they are coming. Where the township people? Wongking Ngoko. Evening, President, and your team watching from Gauteng. Andrew Mukwena, Tambo, welcome Tambo. Good evening, Mr. President, Deputy, and the ACDP family. And then we have Marianne Lotta again. Joseph Rampai from Bloemfontein. Johannesburg is so cold now. I wonder how is Bloemfontein. Welcome, Date Rampai, Marvin Christians. Good evening, President. JJ Scholes from Pumalanga, Goeienaand President Kenneth, Goeienaand Meneer Scholes. And then we have Norman Fana Mkonza. Utiena, Shalom, Shalom, our honorable, blessed, beyond measure President. Slower. And then we have Nora Mali Tinyiko. Uri, good evening, honorable leaders. And then we have Christian Rolson, a counselor in Johannesburg. Good evening to the future president of South Africa. Chirel Reagan Jacobs. Good evening, honorable president. Cape Town welcomes you and team Awesome ACDP. I want to say to you, Miss Jacobs, Johannesburg welcomes you. She says Cape Town welcomes you. I say Johannesburg welcomes you. Good evening, good evening, Mr. President and the ACDP family. Oh, all these wonderful greetings. Now, MPL from Gauteng, Bishop Dalton Adams, says, good evening, my president. Bless you, say. Bless you also, dear Honorable MPL. Lance Grootboom, all the way from PE, the stormy city. He says, Councillor Grootboom says, the family is watching from Utenig in the Eastern Cape. Oh, the Lord bless that family. Good evening, Leonie Lowe. All the way from Waterberg. Those who don't know where Waterberg is, it is in Polokwane, former Transvaal. And then who else do we have? Siseko Mtlokulu. I haven't seen you for a long time, Mr. Mtlokulu. Don't hide. So good to see you tonight. Good evening, honorable leadership. Oh, thank you so much for tuning in. Jamil Isop. all the way from Durban, a councillor in Durban. Whenever we are tired of the cold in Johannesburg, we run to Durban, where I'm surprised that they talk about winter. The DP just said, it is cold, cold. He said, yesterday it was 14 degrees. They complain about 14 degrees. They must come to Johannesburg. Then they will know what cold is. Then we have Moses Powe. Moses Powe from, I guess, Northwest. Good evening, President and the team. Rustenburg is present. Welcome, Rustenburg in the Northwest. Welcome, welcome. All right, that's all for the greetings for tonight. We welcome you one more time, and we are delighted that you are with us. We should be starting with our MPL in KZN, but he has a challenge with connectivity. He is now off the screen, I hope for some time, but we are going to push on, move on, because there's so much to talk about. Now, one of the things, obviously, that we need a briefing on, because we hear statements made by different people, sometimes contradictions. We want to know what is the latest regarding Eskom. Some people are saying very soon we'll be off the grid. Some are saying, no, the grid will not collapse. So there are contradicting statements about Eskom. Actually, we nearly had a panic here. 7:15, 15 minutes ago. The lights went off, computers went off, and you could have seen our young people running in different directions to get us sorted out. Now we are sorted. We are so glad we are with you. But let's hear from Honorable Steve Swart about what has been happening and what is the latest. Is the grid going to collapse, Steve, or what's going to happen? Please tell us what the latest is.
Good evening, President, and good evening to the ACDP family and to everyone that is watching on this cold night. And we can, yes, thank you, President. And I just honor you for hosting the show on a weekly basis. You and the Deputy President, we are really encouraged by the information that you share with us. And I hope that I can also share a little bit of light. But what we need, President, is godly government. We need you as the President and the leader of our country. Because we're sitting in this situation after 15 years of load shedding. President, you remember the ACDP was at the forefront of the Eskom inquiry in Parliament, where we exposed the state capture and the corruption. And it is ongoing still to this day, although to a lesser degree, as we heard from the former CEO, Mr. Andre de Ruyter, in his revealing book about corruption that's ongoing. So your question, is the grid about to collapse? The challenge about answering that question is that our power units have not been properly maintained. And so they are unpredictable. So much has been spent on the issues relating to the renewable energies. And sadly, over the years, there's been political interference and reduced levels of maintenance according to the owner's manufacturing standards. That is the key. The second issue is, of course, political interference. As the Zondo Commission highlighted, as we in the Eskom inquiry highlighted, political interference leading to corruption going way back to the building of the Kusile and Medupi power stations, when Hitachi was involved, when the ANC's investment arm, Chancellor House, was involved, design errors. And now we see that 3 units at Kusile, the new power station, 3 units of 800 megawatts each, are totally offline after a flute chimney collapsed. At the same time, we've got a unit at Koeberg Nuclear Station that is 1 generation unit, which is offline for maintenance. That's 4 generation units. That's 4 stages of load shedding that are offline at the moment. We've got a total capacity of about 50,000 megawatts. At any given stage, there is up to 15 to 20,000 gigawatts that are offline. And I think this is the challenge. This is the challenge, President. So when we have load shedding, this is firstly done manually. And secondly, there's an automated system in Eskom, which trips power stations to avoid a general blackout. A lot of people have been speaking about the risk of a total blackout that will be devastating. As it is, load shedding is devastating to our economy, to households, to businesses. It impacts on security. You can imagine when the lights go off, the impact that it has on our residential areas, our townships, on security. This is a major concern, and it must be laid squarely at the foot of the ANC. And that's why we need a godly government. We need President Kenneth Meshwe to lead our nation with the solutions to this crisis. But President, other countries do not have demand control like we've got in South Africa, where you have load shedding ongoing, which reduces the risk of a total blackout. And whilst the South African Reserve Bank and businesses, obviously in their scenario planning, take into consideration the possibility of a total grid lockdown, the probability is very low, given the fact that there are both manual load shedding and, of course, the automatic load shedding that kicks in when power stations, when the demand is too high. In addition to that, you've got your big industrial clients that Eskom approaches and says, you've got to shut down for a few hours, and that is a way of saving the grid as well. But the fact remains that if we were, as today, if we were to have level 8 load shedding, which is possibly anticipated because of the ice cold weather and the increased demand, that will mean up to 12 hours of load shedding per day, either in 6 shifts of 2 hours or 3 shifts of 4 hours. And that will place an additional burden upon households, upon businesses, upon our mining sector, upon food security. But it is a means to prevent a total grid collapse. Of course, what is unpredictable is the fact that our power stations have not been properly maintained, and therefore they are unpredictable. And that is the challenge. We don't know when a generating unit is going to go down. And that is why one is doing scenario planning as to that possibility. But as and I've had the honor of visiting Eskom, I've seen these incredible engineers that are sophisticated with systems, and they are obviously planning scenarios, but they cannot predict when you have those breakdowns that are unpredictable. And of course, that is due to a lack of proper maintenance. President, the whole issue about Car Powership, in our view, we believe it is unaffordable at 200 billion rand over 20 years. Those funds should rather be used to properly maintain our existing power stations. Of course, in addition, we've got renewable energy that is now coming online, but it can never replace all our power stations. And nowhere in the world can those coal-fired power stations be replaced, particularly in South Africa, where we've got 100 years of coals in our coal mining systems. What we need is clean coal energy, and that is something that we need to move towards. So, President, just to say from our perspective, we have solutions. We've looked into these issues, and what I mentioned today in a press briefing as well, that was broadcast hopefully by SABC, was one of the challenges is the increase in debt levels of Eskom. And at the beginning of the year, we saw that an extra 250 billion rand in debt relief was given to Eskom. Now, sadly, as we've seen in the past, a lot of previous bailouts, the previous bailouts were 263 billion rand in total. And a lot of that money went to ANC corruption, ANC members that were corrupt and deployed cadres, and of course, the criminality that was taking place there as well. What is the scenario now? When you have levels of load shedding, they also bring in the additional open cycle gas turbines. Those are used for emergency purposes, but cost huge amounts of diesel to run, up to 10 million rand per hour. Now, the total amount that was budgeted for this year is 30 billion rand. And that, we believe, has already been spent in running these open cycle gas turbines to help reduce load shedding. The question is, that was put in the last few days, what is going to happen? Will further bailouts be necessary to help pay for diesel? Minister Pravin Gordhan gave the assurance that it would not be necessary and that the additional funds for diesel purchases to reduce load shedding will come from Eskom's operational cash. Now, of course, we really trust that that will be so, because we cannot afford to give unlimited bailouts to Eskom when we're not seeing the results and load shedding still is there. South Africans are sick and tired of load shedding. We experience it daily on a day-to-day basis. You see small businesses being devastated, and what we need is a new government to address this issue. So, President, I hope that addresses it to slightly, if you've got any more questions from your side, but we as the ACDP have got solutions to this. It is to increase our maintenance, ensure reliability of our power stations, yes, to bring in renewable energies, but to remember we have got existing coal supplies. We need clean coal energy, and we cannot afford a ship's coming here, a car power ship at 200 billion rand over 20 years, which the cadres will just steal that money as well. I hope that is helpful to the President.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is helpful. There are obviously those who are saying we must move away from coal altogether. And the ACDP is saying not a chance. The Lord has given us coal so that it will benefit us. Many people in the townships, including myself, appreciate coal because we went to school and because our parents, my mother, was one of the best people who could make fat cooks. And then this fat cook was made on, there is a word, I asked the team here to find that word in English. In my language, it's mbaula, mbaula. Mbaula, you have a tin with holes, you put coal in that in the open, and then put fire, and then, put fire, and then you put...
grid on it. Yeah, you put a grid on it and you braai on that.
Yeah, okay, that thing, you're right. That's mbaula, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, in English, I said they must check what that word means in English. They say it's a heater. It's not a heater. No, it's not a heater. Okay, if somebody can find me a better word in English for mbaula, because we got education, our parents using mbaula, okay? Putting cakes and cooking on this open fire made of coal with a grit on top. Now, if we do away with coal, many children will not have food to eat. That is why ACDP that cares for those who cannot afford expensive stoves are saying, keep mbaula, because through mbaula, some of us are where we are, and there are families that are eating. So thank you very much, Steve, for that. And you know that the President and Minister Mantashe are disagreeing on this matter, because the President, obviously, who also has said he wants to push the New World Order, is agreeing that to move away from coal. Minister Mantashe says, no, let's not move away from coal. We want clean coal energy. As Steve said, clean coal, okay? There is technology that can be used to clean our coal so that it can be better usable, and hopefully make those who are concerned about the high volumes of pollution that will be reduced by clean coal. So thank you very much, Steve, for that word and for that encouragement that there are definitely alternatives. So I agree. Marianne Lotta says, I agree. Car power will be a mistake. Agree 100%, Marianne. And we have Marisuker who says, continued ANC rule is the greatest threat to our country. Dysfunction and corruption under their watch. Yet Marie, the speaker of the Kopgesland. Thank you so much. And then Marianne again says, ANC has stolen the dignity of our country, which is very true. We agree with that. That's why we want them out. And we don't want them to be replaced by another liberal and godly party. We want a party that understands that righteousness exalts the nation. Now we have Regine Dees, who says load shedding is killing us. is causing a lot of unhappiness among people. I'm glad I'm still alive. He didn't kill me. And Regine, let it not kill you. Say you are upset with it, but don't die because of load shedding. Okay, the Lord is going to keep us alive. The Lord is going to keep you alive. All right, we must not try to invent the wheel. Our coal is the best. Hey, that is the truth. That is the truth. There are countries that dumped coal. Now they are going back to coal. Okay, going back to Germany is one of them. Germany is shutting down some of their green power stations and replacing them with coal again. Okay, so we are not going to move away from coal. The Bishop Mandela we cannot see. Okay, we have now who? Maxwell Mbu Ngewu, who says it is crippling our economy. It means this load shedding is crippling our economy and plunging the country into a junkyard. Okay, we are going to move on. We are going to give them another ideas because the Lord downloads solutions. We need to ask him more, because when the ACDP finally takes the reins of South Africa, people are going to say, why did we wait for so long? Our businesses suffered, our businesses collapsed, this and that happened because we did not allow these godly people with godly ideas to come and take the seed in order to leave the country. Now, you know that whenever you fly anywhere far, you have two pilots, and go to America, there are flights that are non-stop. To Europe, flights that are non-stop. But some of them stop. And when they stop, more passengers come in, some disembark, and sometimes even other pilots come on board. All right. Now we are going to have our first stop. Our co-pilot is going to join us now. Honorable Wayne Thrin is going to join. The first thing he's going to do, obviously, is to say halala, hello to everybody. And then he is going to tell us about the Ukraine-Russia war, because people have been asking the question. Some are demanding ACDP, condemn Russia. ACDP, condemn Russia. ACDP has not done that yet, okay? Why have we not condemned Russia? Yeah, not yet. But why have we not condemned Russia? So, Honorable Wayne Thrin, tell us, what did you say, and why didn't you condemn Russia when people are saying condemn Russia?
Well, good evening, President. And as you said, let me say halala to all of our viewers and ACDP supporters and members out there. Thank you again for your support. President, I think that an interview that I had 3 to 4 weeks ago on the Russia-Ukraine war, and the question was asked, what is the ACDP's position on the Russia-Ukraine war? And essentially, I firstly indicated that the ACDP takes issue with the South African government because they are not really being truthful in their positions with regards to a non-neutral position in terms of the execution of diplomacy. Now, the ANC, the ruling party, has indicated that they have a non-partisan position in the Russian-Ukraine war. However, when it comes to the disputes in the Middle East, particularly with Israel and Palestine, there we see that the ruling party actually does not have a non-partisan position, but they have taken a stand in supporting one party, and that is the Palestinians, against the Israelis. Now, the moment you do that, you are not in a position to broker peace. So the first issue that I had was with the ANC's hypocritical stance in terms of diplomacy and their non-partisan stance with regards to Russia-Ukraine war. So the ACDP's position is a position much like we have within the Israel-Palestine position. We call for peace in the Middle East. The ACDP also says that we want to see these two parties coming together, the Israelis, the Palestinians, so that there can be peace in the Middle East. While we also understand the need for Israel to protect herself, but we see ourselves as brokers of peace. And our position is much the same when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. It is a consistent position. In order for us to be emissaries of peace, in order for us to be those who are the carriers of peace and the messengers of peace, we have to be able to speak to both sides. And so the position of the ACDP very clearly was one of non-partisan. So we have not, as the ACDP, taken sides in the Russian-Ukraine war. What we have called for is for a diplomatic solution. Now, we understand that there was a time right at the very beginning that the Russians and the Ukrainians were prepared to sit together, but instructions were given from the globalists and from whoever it is, indicating that those particular peace talks should not take place. So what it appears to be, President, then, is that there are those who want the war. There are those who do not want this war to end. There are those who benefit from the Russia-Ukraine war. And while the Russians and the Ukrainians want peace, there are other brokers on the outside. There are other handlers on the outside who do not actually want to see peace being brokered within the Russian-Ukraine war. But the ACDP's position is very clearly a position where we call for peace, where we call for all sides to come to the table, to sit at the table, to negotiate for peace, to call for peace, and to use the tool of diplomacy. And President, you sit on the International Relations Committee, and I think that you would know well how important it is for any country to be able to broker peace in terms of international relations, for that particular country to be seen to be neutral, not taking sides, in order to bring the warring parties together. And if we don't do that, then we will not be able to broker peace and to be emissaries of peace within the Russian-Ukraine war. Now, one other aspect, President, that must be mentioned is that there's been a Twitter feed indicating that the ACDP is a part of this coalition group which sides and supports Ukraine. And so we must make it very clear that the ACDP has not given permission to any group on Twitter or even outside of Twitter on social media. The ACDP has not given permission to any coalition group to use our name when it comes to a position on the Russian-Ukraine war. I've just made it very clear what the ACDP's position is. And so we do not appreciate people using the ACDP name without our permission to nail our flag to a mosque that we have not asked for our name to be used. So we must be very clear on that and very strong on that no permission was given to this particular coalition group on Twitter to use the ACDP's name and to include the ACDP's name as indicating that the ACDP supports Ukraine and the ACDP is against Russia. What the ACDP is doing and what the ACDP has done is that the ACDP has called for a peaceful solution to the war that is ongoing in Russia and Ukraine. And we continue to ask our members, our supporters, to pray for all those who are affected by the war. I do not believe that the families and the ordinary men and women in the street on both the Russian and the Ukrainian side want war. I believe that the vast majority of them actually want peace within their countries. And we need to support those in both Russia and Ukraine who are actually calling for a peaceful solution to this particular war. And then I think lastly also, there are those who have actually also named and nailed our colors to the Moonshot Pact. We want to make it very clear that the ACDP also President, you took the lead on this, and I think you made mention of it last week, or the week before, and you've made it very clear that the ACDP's position on the Moonshot Pact, we have not joined this particular Moonshot Pact, that the ACDP is there purely on an observer basis. We do not have any enemies, and there are some parties that have named other parties as public enemy number one. As the ACDP president, you've also made it very clear that the ACDP is not about, even though we differ with their party positions and their ideology, but as the ACDP, we do not see other political parties as our enemies. Yes, we differ, but they are not our enemies. And so with the Moonshot Pact, the position of the ACDP is that we are there as observers, we are watching, we are monitoring, but the position of the ACDP is that we've always held this position. When it comes to coalitions, the ACDP will take a position after the election and not before an election period. Nobody can predetermine what an outcome of the election is going to be. And so this is the position of the AC. So I hope that brings some clarity. The Moonshot Pact, the coalition group that has been mentioned on Twitter, and what the ACDP official position is. President, back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, DP. Well stated. Our members should confidently deny anybody saying this is the position of the ACDP before you heard about it. We will not run to the media about any position without informing our members. Our members will know our position. So those who are saying we support Russia's invasion into Ukraine, we disagree. Now, there is a question from Robert Nicole. He says, is the ACDP saying that it condones Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Definitely not. But, okay, as Christians, one of the things that helps us not to be easily deceived is to follow the example that we find in Scripture. In Acts chapter 17, the Bible speaks, in verse 11, it speaks about the church in Berea. It says, whenever the Bereans heard preaching, they did not just swallow what was stated from the pulpit. They went home and searched the scriptures. They searched the scriptures to try to find out for themselves, is what that man saying true or not? Is it scriptural? They searched the scriptures. So with that, I'm saying, our followers, our members, and our friends should also not swallow everything that comes from the media. We must research ourselves. We must make our own researches. How many remember that when COVID started, we were told these vaccines are safe and they are effective, they will help you not to, actually even some presidents. I remember some presidents said, once you are vaccinated, you will never get COVID, okay? They don't say that anymore because facts have proven them wrong. All right. Some of us, we ask questions, before we take this thing, we want to know what is inside. We want to know what are the side effects. They did not want to answer those questions. Some just jumped in and swallowed what was in the media. And many of them regret today. So I'm saying we need to ask questions. Okay. Now the question is, why did Russia invade Ukraine? We don't know all the reasons. But one of those that I have heard, as I did my own research, is that there was an agreement between Russia and NATO, that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia wanted to feel safe, and the agreement was Ukraine will remain a buffer zone, okay? That Russia would not come closer to countries that were belonging to NATO or were part of NATO, and NATO also would not become part of or come closer to Russia by coming into Ukraine or by Ukraine becoming a member of NATO. That was the agreement. That's what I'm told. And that's what I found as I was doing my research. So somebody violated the agreement. So there's a debate whether the agreement was in writing or was verbal. Now, if you're a person of integrity, if you make a verbal agreement, you'll honor that agreement. So NATO didn't honor that agreement from what we are told. Let us research for ourselves. So they say, when NATO came closer and came into Ukraine, Russia felt threatened. Okay? Now, having been in the Middle East, knowing the problems between Israelis and Palestinians, a suggestion has been made by the UN that Jerusalem be divided, that East Jerusalem should belong to the Palestinians, West Jerusalem to Israel. Now, having been there, to the Jews, having been there, you know that there would be a major challenge with security. When one part said, we want to annihilate you and remove you from the face of the earth, how many of us, ACDP members, would we want our neighbor to be somebody who said, I'm going to remove you from the face of the earth? So there is a parallel I see between what's happening there, the threat that the Jews have of feeling as a result of that idea being actioned of dividing Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, from the scripture, some of us believe that there must be one united Jerusalem. So the issue of security is the main one. So we are told that is what happened in that led to a war between Russia and Ukraine that invaded Ukraine, Russia invading Ukraine because they wanted to ensure that NATO does not come too close to them because they would feel insecure. Okay, you have the right to check and to search yourself for facts. But what I'm asking is that let's not swallow everything without asking questions. And we do not want to be pushed into one direction or support somebody else just because the majority are saying support Ukraine, support Ukraine, without knowing what led to that and why. The most important thing is what our DP said. We believe we must be peace brokers. The scriptures say as Christians, we are peacemakers. So we must not be quick to fight for war, but let's talk, let's negotiate. I salute the African leaders who tried to speak to both parties. NATO, I don't know the European heads of state or American heads of state who said, let's negotiate. They didn't do it. It was the Africans, even though they knew that they might not be successful, but it was the Africans who tried to negotiate peace. So let's see the big brothers, those who are not happy that they are making money out of the arms that they are selling, that they should come and say, let's negotiate peace between Russia and Ukraine. If they tried that, I'm sure by now there would have been peace. So we are not going to throw stones. We want to be peacemakers. All right. Having said that, there is a Mandla Amigo who says, what should be our standpoint on the matter that Pirates should boycott the game against Israel team Maccabi Football Club, Muruti? On this one, we say up the Bucks. Up the Bucks. The Buccaneers have the right to play whoever they want to play. You know that it was former President Nelson Mandela who said, sport is one best way of making friends. Sport has the capacity and the ability to make enemies come together. What happened with the first Rugby World Cup in South Africa? Did you see how the stadiums were full of people mixed, all races shouting, boke, 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 excited, all races, sports, rugby brought us together, okay? So even with this game that Pirates is facing against this Israeli team, it is the right thing to do. The ACDP, personally, I'm not the Buccaneer. I'm a coach, personally, okay? I don't support Pirates, but in this case, Pirates definitely has done the right thing. Let's encourage them. And I heard that some of our former MMCs are happy that ACDP supports Pirates playing against that Israeli team. ACDP supports that. We want to do that. Okay, Danki Muruti, up the Bucks. Okay, he says up the Bucks. Zokuluma will talk outside. Okay, up the Bucks. He says up the Bucks. All right. Now, obviously, having heard that, on Thursday this past week, I had a very interesting meeting. I met with a delegation from Japan embassy. I met Minister Akihiko Uchikawa, who's the deputy head of missions at the Embassy of Japan in South Africa. Now, he asked to see me. It was very interesting. He said, okay, we have met with leaders of other political parties. We also want to meet with you and hear what you think about us, and we share things of common interest. I was pleasantly surprised as they explained about their life in Japan. I asked them questions about a video I saw. I saw a primary school children cleaning their classrooms, primary school children. Now, I remembered that when we grew up, we were cleaning our classrooms ourselves. When the current administration came in, they said, no, children must stop working, not even at home, stop working and focus on their studies. Now, this nation called Japan, small as it is, we looked at the World Population Review of 2021. When they reviewed the countries and ranked them according to their educational outputs, Japan is number 7 in the world. Japan, number 7. With their children cleaning almost every day. South Africa, with the children not cleaning their classrooms, not doing anything, throwing papers all over, not doing anything. Number 33. I'm saying, guys, are we helping our children to become responsible? When we say to them, you don't have to clean anything, okay? Let's spend money and get somebody to come and clean for you. And then we have a country that teaches their children to take responsibility for their assets, responsibility for themselves. So we spoke around the issue of education. And they are going to send me more information about how they structure their education. And I'm hoping that South Africa will be willing, or ACDP members that will say, when government finally lands in our hands and God gives us the country, what are we going to do? We are going to learn from the best of the best. Not countries that are below number 10. Japan is number 7, okay? We are going to learn from them. The one that's number 1, what are they doing different? We are going to look at that. All right. Now, the other thing that we spoke about, that they said they drill in their children, is responsibility and respect. Respect. Again, I saw in this video, school children crossing the streets. At the pedestrian crossings, as you know that pedestrians must have priority. When the school children in Japan cross across that pedestrian crossing, the other side, they bow. Before every driver and car that gives them space, they thank them. They develop a culture of teaching their children to respect and to say thank you. For a big and a small thing that they receive, their children, they say, thank you. Wouldn't it be wonderful for South Africa to develop such a culture that whenever you get something from anybody, you get assistance from anybody, you don't just grab and go, but you say, thank you. When you are in a restaurant, they bring you a meal, thank you. You enjoy the meal, thank you. May thank you be part of our lifestyle. Gratitude, not taking each other for granted. So the Japanese children are taught. Parents, if your children don't know how to say thank you, teach your children to say thank you. And even you as a parent, one of the best way of teaching your children is to set an example for them. When your children bring you something, bring you water, say what? Thank you. Okay, then we'll be inculcating a new form of behavior, even in our children. So I was impressed with what I saw the people of Japan do. But the other thing that maybe I should, before I leave Japan, that I need to refer to. Do you remember that during the World Cup in Qatar, people were surprised that when the fans would leave the stadium after the match, Japanese spectators would remain behind, cleaning the stadium. Huh? I've never heard of something like that. Cleaning the stadium is part of their culture. Their culture it teaches cleanliness. So South Africans, there is so much we can learn from these people. If we love ourselves, we will do the right thing and clean our environment. Teach our children. You don't just eat and leave papers lying all over. You take the papers and you show them where they belong, to the trash can. All right, that is what's been done. I saw that, and these visitors from Japan, obviously from the embassy, they expatiated on that, and I asked them, would you be willing to one day come on this live stream to share with us about some of the things you do to advance education in Japan? Their students is among the best when it comes to maths and science. After cleaning, they study, focused, not playing around, no sex, like South African government that is obsessed with sex, teaching children as young as 5, 4 about what they should not be taught regarding this thing. The Japanese children are focused. That's why they produce many scientists, they produce professors, they produce people that are contributing to build South Africa. Build that country. So we are going to rebuild South Africa. The comrades have destroyed South Africa. We are going to rebuild South Africa. And for us to do that, let's take responsibility. Let's take responsibility. 2012, we went to one of my favorite countries on the African continent. Okay? I want you to guess. I'll tell you the name of the country later. We were surprised to see how clean that country was. We were pleasantly surprised. When we left the airport, we were looking out of the windows to see how many papers we could count along the street. 30 minutes drive, not one paper. That country is called Rwanda. Rwanda, some call it the Singapore of Africa, because it's clean. They have once a month on a Saturday where everybody comes together to clean. When we were in Rwanda, I was privileged. My wife and I were privileged to be in the same Kumbi where the president was. They drive in Kumbis, okay? We were in the same Kumbi with him. He was working. We were working alongside the president. I'm so sorry that I'm not sure what happened to the pictures that we took then, but I'm talking about taking responsibility for your country, taking responsibility for your family. That is something that the ACP wants to introduce in South Africa. We are not sure whether we are going to succeed or not, but we are going to try to inculcate the value of respect, the value of taking responsibility, the value of diligence, of hard work, so that together we can produce the best thing that we want out of South Africa. So having said that, our next, obviously, we have a guest. Unfortunately, because of load shedding and because of poor connectivity, the picture does not appear. If the picture appears, then it becomes a problem. All right, okay. I'm told now they are all together off the screen. We could hear the sound from them, so they were going to tell us more about what they are doing, and that was Bishop MPL Manele from KZN. So unfortunately, he was supposed to be with us, and but because of poor connectivity where he stays in Mutuba area, they are unable to be with us tonight. But obviously, we have very capable men with us who are going to ensure that in spite of the challenge we have with his absence, a challenge I believe we are going to correct. And next week, maybe he'll move and go to another city or another place. Okay, that's what we need to do. If we have to do something and it does not work where we are, we have to move. Go to another town. Like when you have load shedding, if you cannot afford a generator, if you don't have an inverter, so take your whatever you take, go to Mark and Bean if you want to connect, because they have free Wi-Fi there, or go where you can connect so that you can do and fulfill your responsibilities. All right. Now, my co-pilot, Honorable Wayne, it's on Thursday. He will be having another meeting with other parties that we are in coalition with. He's going to tell us what are the key things that make that meeting necessary. All right. Here is the interesting thing that I'm now thinking I must throw in quickly before my co-pilot comes in. We have been accused as the ACDP that we don't want to cooperate with other Christian parties. We divide the Christian vote. We don't want to be united with them. And I want to, even if I have to say this every month, I will say it. So that when people say ACDP is divisive, ACDP does not want to work with other parties, so that you know that those people are lying. Okay? Now, the parties that he's going to tell us about are parties that do not claim to believe in Christ or born again. So we just work together to ensure that the budget are passed and then service delivery is made possible. That's our contribution. But when people say, let us unite under the banner of Christ, then obviously the expectation changes, the standard changes. You cannot tell me that you worship idols, you worship ancestors, and you want to stand with me on the same platform under Christ. Oh, wow. If you say you worship idols and ancestors and you go to Sangomas and all this stuff, no, we can't do that under Christ. Because if it's under Christ, then the biblical standards must apply. But now, what he's going to talk about is not under Christ. It's just to help municipalities work together. So, DP, thank you so much for explaining to us about the Thursday meeting. What will we be talking about? And is it really, really necessary for the ACDP to be part of this? That's the question that some people are asking. Some might say, why do you want to work with the DA, but you don't want to work with your fellow Christian? Okay, answer that one for us and give us more light.
Well, President, I think that it's not true that the ACDP doesn't want to work with our fellow Christians. I think that the ACDP has, over the years, has reached out. We've had people who are with us within the ACDP that have gone and established their own political parties. And we've had meetings with them to see how we could cooperate, coming under one particular banner. But I think the challenge has always been where personalities and position play, where certain individuals who have left the ACDP wanted to come back, and they wanted to come back as leaders instead of coming and saying, we want to work with you. And so the ACDP is not necessarily not wanting to work with other Christian groups. And in fact, we've gone out of our way to reach out to other Christian groups. President, at the moment, the ACDP is the largest Christian political party in South Africa. What most South Africans also don't know is that the ACDP is the 6th largest political party nationally in Parliament, the 6th largest political party nationally. So very clearly, I think that when we are accused of not wanting to work with other Christian groups, it's not true. Now, in the municipality where we are co-governing, this comes about where after an election, we as the ACDP have to sit and then make a decision in terms of what is our position in all of the different municipalities where the ACDP is able to influence the outcome of governance in that particular municipality. And so within the city of Tshwane, the ACDP has participated in co-governing with other political parties such as Action SA, the IFP, the Freedom Front, the DA, and one or two other smaller parties in terms of providing service delivery in that municipality where service delivery issues have failed, where the municipality is at a state of, at times, virtual collapse. And so to prevent the municipality from collapsing, the ACDP has decided, in the city of Tshwane, to form a co-governing relationship. And this co-governing relationship now it's beyond your political belief system. What it is about is the millions of people in that particular municipality who have not received service delivery, who have not been receiving clean water, who have not been receiving a proper electricity reticulation, whose streets are not being properly serviced, where there are potholes in the streets, where there are no pavements for our children to walk safely in. And so the ACDP then would come and say, in this particular municipality, there has been no service delivery by the ruling party, from the ruling party, over the last 3 decades. Now, which particular grouping is best able to do this? And so the grouping in the city of Tshwane is the grouping that we believe would be able to, with the help of the ACDP, would be able to bring service delivery. Unfortunately, we've also seen how the ruling party at times frustrates the co-governing groups, but nonetheless, we have been resolute in ensuring that our portion is to bring service delivery to the citizens and to the ratepayers of the city of Tshwane. So, President, this is what the ACDP has been doing, continues to do. We are going to be meeting on Thursday, but the meeting on Thursday is to look at the formation of the establishment of a deputy mayor position, and that deputy mayor position will go to one of the other political parties, and the ACDP's comments then, contribution would be that the deputy mayor position must not be a figurehead position. It must not be a ceremonial position. That particular position must be capacitated, properly capacitated, must have staff so that the deputy mayor is able to do what he or she is called to do in terms of the rule of law and the systems and the laws that actually govern municipalities. So that's the ACDP's contribution. President, maybe one last thing on this. We were able to take an MMC position, but the ACDP put the residents before position. So we don't have an MMC position because we placed the residents of the city of Tshwane before position, and that's what the ACDP does. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. Our time is almost up. 1 minute left. We want to. I saw. I think it's a family that said, oh, well, the husband or wife, but they look their family in the picture. It is Kaz Metz. She says, or he says, sorry, I left and came back with a repentant heart. I'm proud to be ACDP. Ladies and gentlemen, if you talk about integrity, ACDP, We welcome Mats van der Bijl. We welcome you. Thank you for coming back home. The last thing, and I hope you'll agree with us, some of the new Christian parties, as the DPS said, some of them were in the ACDP, they could not make leadership, then they left to start their own thing, they come back as leaders and they say, let's form a new party. We contest under new elections. So a new banner. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it would be wise for a party that has been on the political map for 30 years to disband and amalgamate with a party that is 3 months or 6 months old? Man, if we do that, I would say they're less dumb. People who watch it, they will say, those people are dumb. Okay, we'll never do that. Okay, so, okay, now that's one. Marianne says, I will never understand why the ACDP has to work with other Christian political parties. Okay, why can't they work with us? Co-governing is a safer option. All right, what we will not do, friends, is to disband and start a new organization with all these other guys, some of them who are sponsored by George Soros. You know who George Soros is? We'll tell you later about him and the parties they are sponsoring in South Africa. But ACDP will stand on its own and be faithful to what our voters have said to us. The mandate they gave us, we will honor that mandate and we will be faithful to that mandate. No money will buy us. You heard the leader of the DA saying the donors, the sponsors expect us to do 1, 2, 3. Our interest is not those who give money, but those who are voting for us. And we are going to serve them. We are going to serve you and your family and the nation of South Africa. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for being with us tonight. I trust that you enjoyed our fellowship together as we fellowship over the airwaves. And the Lord bless you until next week, Tuesday, same time, same place. Hamba kahle, lala kahle, sleep well, lekker slap, lekker diom, shikwempu shimikatekisa.